Myself, Vatsal, and I hope you're able to see my screen now.
Yes.
Okay, great. So let me start with my presentation. Yeah, so my presentation is actually about my journey for a particular project I did very recently. And that project was related to the complete front-end transformation of an e-commerce application. It was obviously not a job that I did alone. There was a whole team involved, and thankfully, I was leading that team. And so what we did was, so this e-commerce application was actually built, close to more than 5 years ago, and it was built using Angular version 1. So I mean, there is no there's nothing for you to convince that Angular 1 is being kind of outdated now, and it is being completely de-scoped, and we need to move to a better technology. So the business analysis had a choice. Okay, they want to proceed to next version of Angular, or they want to try React, and that is when I was onboarded into the team as a React developer. So let's get started. Now, in this, I'll talk mostly about Redux. This talk is more about Redux than React, and and the way in which how you can use Redux for a sort of a large scale or medium to large scale application. This talk is not applicable if you are working on a some smaller project. Like some kind of a POC or demo application. It's a okay. So let's get to the next slide. So what I'm covering in this talk today. So the main key idea here is solving the complexity which is coming now as more time is passing on into the front end projects. Now front end projects, basically I have been working as a developer for past 10 years, and when I started, jQuery was a very brand new thing. Okay, I started when we were writing JavaScript just for form validations. Then jQuery came, then Backbone.js came, then like a lot of Angular and a lot of stuff came, right? So now in this talk, I'll cover React with Redux, which everybody knows, but there are something new insights which I'll share. What are the building blocks which I used for this sort of project transformation? How I'll share some of the implementation details about it. Okay, and then also what are the benefits this will provide to learning on about these things. What are the benefits you can take out of them? Kiran, you can still hear me, right? And my screen is still shared.
Yes.
Okay,
If anything is wrong, I will let you know.
Sure. Thanks. So coming to the problem statement again, I'll reiterate my problem statement. That is for the projects which are larger than small projects. Okay, so lack of structure in React.js projects leads to a complex interaction, and it is very difficult for developers and kind of a newer developers to understand how to implement the solution, and it takes some time and experience to do that. So I'm going to give you some approach, or it's my opinionated way, excuse me, about thinking about the problem. Okay. Now the approach here is, it's nothing new. What you're dealing with, it's just a different stage, but the war or the game has been played. Has already been played many times in the history. Okay. Now, of course, the front end projects are kind of an application where a lot of software code is written, and there have been backend systems which have been evolving for many years now. Doing the same thing. A lot of code is written which interacts with each other. So we are going to take some help from those backend systems and their implementations, and we are going to implement it in the front end. Okay, this is the approach. I'm not telling that you can do one-to-one comparison. It is the way we can think about it. Now let's talk about React and Redux. right? An ideal interface is very simple. You have a React component, you have your Redux store. React, kind of whichever way puts the data in the Redux store, and then the Redux, and then same component can pull out the data from Redux. Very simple, no confusion there. But when you actually get inside your project and you start doing it, right? And as your project slowly evolves, as the complexity increases, as you keep on adding more and more newer and new feature, this is what you get. This is what it turns up, right? Everywhere, from every part of the component, you are putting the data in the Redux, and almost from everywhere, from every component, you're pulling out the data from the Redux, right? So here things are getting really messy. Now, of course, as you can see with the diagram here, I have made these messy to make you understand what we are going to do about it. So we are going to find the missing structure when it comes to a React application talking to a Redux store. Okay, and we are trying to establish an organized way in which React components are going to talk to Redux store using reducers. I mean, the usual stuff which Redux provides. Okay, so this is what we are trying to achieve. Here you have same React component, or a higher level container, and then you have Redux, right? Now I have purposefully made my blocks color coded, which kind of maps to the Redux store as well, because there is a pattern here. There is a relationship there. So some components of from React are going to only talk some store of Redux. As you know, in the Redux you can add multiple stores. It's not just one store. You can have multiple stores into that. So there are a few components which are going to talk to one particular store, and there are a few components which are going to talk to one particular store, right? I hope I'm making sense. If anybody have any doubts, actually I'm not able to see the chat window right now because my presentation is full screen. You can, I don't know how, but ask the question, okay? Anyways, so what are the building blocks which I'm going to use to achieve this kind of a much cleaner to reason about pattern in my application? So first thing is it's more of a conceptual thing, which is called single responsibility principles, and I'm very sure you guys have like heard about all the solid principles of software designing and this and that. But one thing to take away is single responsibility principle, and it is and it has to be followed very religiously. You have to be very disciplined about when you say, okay, this particular code block is going to just perform one single responsibility, then you have to stick to it. Okay. Second thing is classes. Now in this case it was reducer class, and I'm a bit of a orthodox guy when it comes to kind of a technology thing, because um, the thing is, the usefulness of classes has not gone away. And in fact, the JavaScript community has recently started embracing it, and suddenly all the functional things came up, which has its own use case. I mean, functions are, functional components and everything else are good, but still classes are going to help you a lot when you are going to, think about the architecture at the higher level, when you want to, brainstorm about, okay, how things are connected with each other. You need classes. I mean, that's what I feel. Then third thing is middlewares and excessive use of middlewares. What I've seen in most of the React projects, people don't use a lot of middleware. I mean, it's a Redux middleware I'm talking about. The most of the logic is put inside the reducers or in the component itself. Now, as you know, as a good practice in the reducer, you should not put any business logic. Otherwise, it's going to delay. It's going to slow your application. There shouldn't be any computation or complex logic happening inside the reducer, right? So where it will go? It cannot go in the component. Components are not for business logic. They are just for the representation of the state, right? So all the business logic lives in the middlewares. Then action. So when I say action everything, I mean literally every possible thing which you can think out of your application, just spit out an action for it. So maybe you are not even trying to use that action right now, but who knows, in the future you are going to add add a new feature which can utilize that action, and application emitting that action is not going to harm, right? Another thing is Dux module. I mean, the people who have like really went into the rabbit hole of putting React for a large scale project might have heard about it, but it's a kind of a again conceptual way of putting your reducers code. So like there are jar files for Java. Why can't there would be some kind of a file for your Redux module? So Dux module, you can search on the internet. Nothing I have come up with myself. It's something which exists. Okay, now let's talk about implementation. So these building blocks which I have used, how I'm going to implement them. Actually, I wanted to show you guys a lot of code, but the thing is, in the talk, I do not have so much scope to show you all that amount of code, although I have some which I'll definitely do it. So here you can see, so this implementation is talking about a shopping platform, right? So this white one is kind of your all the React layer inside which all of your components and containers lives. Okay, and this the blue part is all your reducer modules, I will call them. Okay, so you have like one module which is only responsible for the preparation. You have another module which is only responsible for the filters. You have another module which is only responsible for product, and so on, right? Now, if you can see the arrow, of course, the React components can talk to Redux modules, but Redux modules can also talk to each other. And this itself gives you a lot of benefits, in reducing the complexity. And I have one example of one product module code. I'll show you in some time. So in the preparation part, what we are going to do, we are going to trigger an API call, right? It's going to fetch some data. Now, depending on how your API is structured, you may send out all the data as one. You may be using something like GraphQL, where you are only kind of cherry picking the data which you want. In my case, so I'll have all the data for a particular page. I'll explain what the page is, and the filters were coming separately because it was using Solar for indexing, and they have some facets API through which we were doing that. So once the data was taken, it was the filters were kind of sorted out, and it was passed to the filter module, right? And then similarly, the products, all the products related information was extracted from the data, and then it was passed directly to the products module. And then, so basically, they were dispatching their own actions. All the business logic was handled in the middleware, and all the state was living inside the reducers. Okay. Now coming to next slide. So what does it provide? Okay, since we are talking about implementation, let me show you guys, a little bit about the implementation as well. Yeah, so it's a QA environment of that shop which I'm loading. Okay, and let me quickly inspect and show you. So how the Redux looks for this one, right? Let me reload, and just so you know. So these are, I mean, as you can see, bunch of. Okay, I assume everyone is familiar with the Redux dev tools here. These are your actions, and this is where you can see basically the details for your action and your state. Okay, so for example, there's the action which triggers an API request which passes a particular URL, and it just passes the URL, and it also tells, okay, on success call this action, and on error call this action. And by the way, you can use like you can make backend API calls without any kind of a async thunk or anything. Just with pure reducer actions, you can make the API call. Maybe I'll be able to show that as well. So after fetching the data, it's going to trigger this on success message if it's going to be succeed, or it will show the error. So let's see where this UI fetch success might have come, and let me quickly filter it out. So yeah, so there is this where is that? Yeah, UI fetch success, and basically it was actually collecting. It was just giving the data for these these header panels, as you can see, right? So here, as you can see, right now I have a UI module, okay, and these are all the actions which are triggered for this particular UI module, and this UI module is only responsible for very dedicated sort of tasks which are related to UI. Okay, I mean some sort of a state management, like what is loading, what is not, and things like that. And same way, I have a like a search module which is responsible for all the search related data. I mean, so the idea here is where is the slide gone? Yeah. So what I'm telling is that you remember I was talking about this, right? Single responsibility principle. At the time of implementation, this was my goal, that with utmost discipline and as religiously I can, I should follow a single responsibility principle where a particular module is only responsible for that job. Now, let me show you very quickly how, let's say, the product module looks. Okay, so this is my product Dux module. Okay, it's very small because it only cares about the product's business logic. Okay, and when I talk about the product's business logic, so for the most part, what it is dealing with is just let me quickly. So let's say I click on a particular product page. Okay, so it went to. Okay, so here actually the data, because it's a QA environment, so we do not, it's not like production data. So, like customers also bought is empty, but it's not how the actual shop looks. But what I'm telling is, so here you have, the product page, and that product module is only responsible for dealing this product page. You click buy now, it basically sends some data to the cart. I mean, if I can show, so behind the scene, what is happening is, from the product's component, I'm triggering an action which is sending the data to the cart, and then cart is taking the data and showing it in the kind of a flyout. So if I increase, so you can see the it's increasing and decreasing the values as well. Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about like what kind of function, how this whole product module is structured. Okay, now I'm using something called reducer class. So it's, by the way, it's TypeScript. So we have good support for the classes and all. So reducer class is a library, right, which provides a class representation of reducer. Okay, and it takes the reducer product state as in an interface, where it's an arbitrary interface, because from the API what kind of data will come, we didn't knew at the time, so we had just put some kind of an arbitrary key value pair sort of a thing. Okay, you can define the initial state, and then there you see these are the methods for this particular class. Now, before that, I would also say mention about how the actions are being dispatched. So in this module itself, we have actions. Now you see there are only these three functions exported, and these three functions are actually are the dispatch, are the functions which are dispatched from the component, but the actual actions are these, which are not exported, by the way, which lives only inside the module. So let's say when you call get product, you basically triggered this get product action, which is using create action from Redux actions. So what happens is I have these three middlewares, and this one I'll talk about is using an action decorator. Why they are different? So inside this one reducer class, I have my middlewares and I have my reducer also. So okay, let me okay, I think it will be too much text now. Okay, so and then this product class I can just call create, and by default it will give me a nice reducer implementation which I can put it into my store. And these static classes are going to be just passed on as a constant for product middleware, which I'm going to pass in as a middleware in the array of middlewares. Now when I call this get product action, what I did was I had in my middleware I had filtered out this particular action. Okay, so your actions are not just only handled in the reducers, you can also filter out your actions inside your middleware. And this is it's nothing different. It's a very generic middleware signature. Like if you go to reducers documentation, you will see the signature where they have explained how the middleware is formed. There is one full page of description, like where they have went into the full depth, like how the middleware function comes about. Okay, so here a bunch of things are happening. Here I can get the state from this particular store. Okay, I can have some of my helper functions here itself, which are nothing, just creating some kind of a string to put in the request. And another interesting thing is dispatch. So if you remember in my slide, sorry. What I was showing was that a module can talk to another module. One Redux class can send data to another Redux class. So this is how the implementation looks. So you can dispatch an action from this module. So this is calling API request action. Okay, which is defined in the API Dux, which is also another Dux module, something like this, and it also has an exported function called API request, and that is also calling its own action, and then action is handled somewhere in the module. Okay, now basically here, if you remember in my dev tools of the Redux, I was showing if after making the API call, okay, if you want to call the success action or the error action, and then this is where I'm handling the success action. Okay, and then it is also again sticking to just what it is supposed to do, is not worry about anything else. It just, okay, success happened, I need to update the product. So I got the product data, I just need to put it in the store. Now this update product is again another function which basically triggers an update product action. And then so this implementation actually comes from the reducer class. So here you have a decorator which knows at which particular action I should trigger this function, and it's like a very generic, whatever I got from the payload, I'm just putting it inside my store. So basically my state gets updated with all the data in the store, right? So this is a module which is following the single responsibility principle. It has very clean interface when it needs to talk to any other component or even any other module. It has these three kind of API functions which you can call and do only the things which you want to do. And then same way you can, so from this particular module you can call the other module. Okay, so I hope that much part about the implementation would have been enough for the explanation, and so we can move on to the benefits for it. Reusability. After you have, okay, so I can show it in a wait. So let's assume our application, let's think about our application from not from the UI side, not from the UI perspective, but about its behavior. So okay, basically, let me be very frank about it. I'm not a UI guy. Okay, I am actually more of a I'm a full stack developer essentially. Work more with Node.js, Java, and those sort of stuff. And I have worked with React also, mostly working on the projects with other UI developers. So I don't have a lot of insight about okay how, when it comes to UI look and feel and themes and all those stuff. But what my focus is always upon the behavior of things, about how a system is behaving. Okay, how, and also some bit about the performance, how it is performing, and all this stuff. So if you think from that point of view, let's say you completely hide away the UI, your all the actions here are telling you the complete picture or the complete story from A to Z, that what is going on inside your application. Though, for example, let me just click the buy now. Okay, what happened is item got added in the cart, the basket got synchronized because there is a backend API which needs to know, okay, if some user has sent has added the data. Okay, so basically here what you can see is this cart is not doing any business logic. It is just telling, it is just triggering an action which is called sync basket, and then that is handled in another kind of a action which is put basket. Okay. I think an API call should have happened here, but it did not. Maybe I don't know what happened. Anyways, maybe not. Yeah, and then the flyout was supposed to be hidden. Now this again, the hiding of the flyout thing, if that product flyout was visible, is UI job. It has nothing to do with product or card or any other module. Okay. Yeah. So what I was trying to tell is reusability. If you think about your application completely only from the point of behavior and not from the UI, then you can take this module and put it in somewhere else, in some other kind of a system. For example, why not in the React Native, a mobile application? Maybe you are creating another part of the same application which also needs to have similar kind of a behavior. Just reuse the same module, right? Minimize complexity. So I don't know, but I don't know if you guys agree with it or not, but what I feel is, if you divide the app features in the way how they are interacting with each other, then it sort of it makes it easier for you to reason about the complexity of the application, and at the same time it increases the developer experience. It gives you a better experience working on a project which can really go out of hand very fast. It can become a headache very soon if you are not approaching, if you're not hitting it with a thoughtful approach. Okay, extendability, as I told, if you're triggering all the kinds of actions, then later in the point when you want to add some more features, you can extend upon that existing framework which you have created. And speed. So actually, it is my next slide which will tell you that about in the wild, basically. Okay, how in the real world, when the rubber meets the road, how it all turned out. So basically, as I have already mentioned, it was all because I wanted to do a major transformation of a e-commerce application, which is a UK-based e-commerce application. Um, I mean, medium to large scale application. It has lots of products, lots of daily traffic, customers, and everything. So from the Angular to React, right? The deadline was extremely tight because I was kind of doing what to say is a kind of a what to say. I mean, putting out the fire kind of a task, because the project management had already faced, had already burned their finger once, because earlier they had hired some other team, which took almost 9 to 12 months to implement this application, and they used Next.js. I mean, they were not doing anything wrong. It was like I'm doing everything right, but still, for whatever reason, they were not able to get those benchmarks which the project management was needed. So I had to finish this entire application within 3 months, 2.5 to 3 months, the actual development, and some 15-20 days or more, like a UAT and QA thing going on. Okay, so this kind of an approach about working on the application had helped me greatly for for doing a very large scale task in a much easier way. If I want to put up a bonus tip, I want to share with you that I went overboard with web workers. I was really concerned about a lot of performance. I went to that far that if some logic is happening which is not needed a UI thread, why can't it happen in web worker? But it turned out a really disaster, because web worker support in a lot of browsers is very experimental, and the app crashes, like it's very fragile. Okay, so we can start the question answer now. But one thing what I noticed is, in my next project which I worked, which I'm still working on, I wanted to approach the same kind of architecture, but on the more of a completely functional point of view. Redux toolkit gives me almost very similar interface. The only complaint I have from it is it does not provide me this part. I couldn't figure out a way how from one slice to another slice I can pass the data. So if you guys know about it, I'll be very grateful. If you can help me with that. And yeah, so basically I'm a senior front-end engineer in Skill Street. My today's what's Elan, Skype, Vatsal.elan, although it's going away very soon, I heard. My email is mevatsal@gmail.com, and please share your thoughts with me.